Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel Bachelor and Master English. Today I am taking class on Charles Lamb from the History of English Literature. If you are a new viewer to my channel, please subscribe it and share it on your social sites. Okay, let's go with today's discussion. I request you to stay with me until the end of today's discussion. Here we go. Charles Lamb and Innovation of Personal Essays. Charles Lamb was born in the Temple, London, and was educated at Christ Hospital. He was a pure Londoner. He was born there and died there, having spent most of his life taking care of his sister Mary Lamb, who stabbed their mother to death in a fit of insanity in 1796. And Charles cared for her between her periodic returns to an asylum. As a friend of Samuel Taylor Coleridge, some of his poems were included in the second edition of the Poems on Various Subjects, published in 1797. He was a clerk with the East India Company at India House from 1792 to 1825, when he retired to Enfield. Lamb wrote personal essays under his pseudonym ELIA. He is founding father of subjective essays in English literature. Commonly known under his pseudonym of ELIA, Charles Lamb is considered one of the greatest of English essayists. He is mainly known for his Essays of ELIA, published in 1823, and Last Essays of ELIA, published in 1833, in the gap of a decade, that's 10 years period. As ELIA, he contributed essays to the London Magazine from 1820 to 1823 for 4 years. The essays are all cast as if written by ELIA, but they are not reliably autobiographical, even when seeming so. Lamb adopted the name ELIA, which was that of a former Italian clerk at the South Sea House, especially for literary reasons. The fanciful, old-fashioned character of the narrator is maintained throughout. He is, in Lamb's words, a bundle of prejudices, with a strong liking for the whimsical, the quaint, and the eccentric. When Lamb's ELIA essays, which have appeared under that signature in the London Magazine, was published in 1823, he was already one of the most popular writers in England. But the ELIA essays enjoyed unparalleled success. Critics were enchanted with Lamb's highly wrought style and his blending of humor and grief. Never preachy, the essays treat ordinary subjects in a nostalgic, fanciful way. And one of their chief attractions for readers of both the 19th century and 20th century is the gradual revelation of the author's personality that is typical of romantic writers, not only poets but also the prose writers. His essays cover a wide range as his themes are concerned. The tone is never didactic or seriously philosophical, and at all disturbing aspects of life are avoided. The essays are deeply personal and autobiographical. They are full of wit, humor, and pathos. There are vivid and brief character sketches and interesting anecdotes spread through his essays. His essays are replete with his memories of the past. Hugh Walker points out wisdom as the greatest of all Lamb's qualities. No such controversy surrounds that ELIA essays, which have been almost universally praised by reviewers since their initial appearance. Although some scholars consider Lamb's style imitative of earlier essay writers of England, the majority now accept that quality as one of the author's distinctive hallmarks, along with his fondness for the obscure and other idiosyncrasies. The style is very literary and carefully wrought, filled with archaisms and with echoes of Lamb's master. He collaborated with his sister Mary Lamb on Tales from Shakespeare, published in 1807, and his specimens of English dramatic poets contemporary with Shakespeare with Notes, published in 1808, 1 year later, revealed him as a penetrating critic and helped to revive interest in Elizabethan plays. A.C. Bradley, a literary critic and preeminent Shakespearean scholar of the 19th century and early 20th centuries, called him the best of Shakespeare's dramatic critic. His Tales from Shakespeare, designed for the use of young persons, which became very famous children's book and is still widely read today. Charles and Mary were friendly with many of the chief writers of their time, including Samuel Taylor Coleridge and William Hazlitt. Although his comments are often shrewd, Lamb treated Renaissance plays as cabinets of poetic gems and curiosities in specimens of English dramatic poets contemporary with Shakespeare, with notes published in 1808. His preference for reading plays rather than seeing them is only partly due to the low state of the theatre at that time. Playwrights were for his dramatic poets, whereas the Romantics were a specimen of humanity who lived about the time of Charles Lamb. Specimens of English dramatic poets and other Lamb works were read far into the 19th century and admired by both generations of Romantics. Lamb is famous for arguing that Shakespeare's plays are more successful as literature than when presented on stage, when actors draw attention away from the author's words and may even misinterpret them. Others argue that to read Shakespeare's plays as prose is to deny their very purpose as stage works. In both style and content, they depicted the intellectual preferences and favored themes of Romantic society. Lamb's essays are still widely read and admired. They include some of the old benchers of Inner Temple, Christ's Hospital, the South Sea House, Mrs. Battle's Opinion on Whist, Dream Children, A Dissertation on Roast Pig, and The Supernatural Man. The collected essays of 1823 did not sell well, to Lamb's great discouragement. The charm held by his friends lingers in old China and in two races of men. These are the men who borrow and the men who lend. A falling off in the quality of the last essays is very apparent. The purpose of his own familiar essays is to display his idiosyncratic sensibility. Lamb was once mentally deranged and spent 6 weeks very agreeably in a madhouse, a fact he reported to Coleridge in the first of his letters to survive. Scholars attribute the breakdown to a number of possible causes. Though he waged a lifelong battle with depression, Lamb was never again to suffer a complete breakdown. Many critics have suggested that Lamb's writing, his whimsy, his humor, and the strong expressions of feelings so often discernible in his work kept him going. Creative writing was a kind of therapy to Lamb to prevent from one's insanity. Charles Lamb's elegant prose made him a major essayist of the Romantic era and has formed a part of the canon of English literature ever since. His essays have delighted generations of readers, and his literary criticism testifies to his versatility and perceptiveness. He was also well known to his contemporaries as a novelist, journalist, poet, writer for children, and fine critic devoted to antiquity, particularly Latin literature and that of Elizabethan and 17th century writers. His popularity extended through the 19th century into the 20th but waned after 1934 at the centenary of his death. Since the 1960s, however, his reputation has risen again, with the publication of new biographical and critical works celebrating and analyzing his artistry becoming something of a cottage industry. Although Lamb wrote poetry, stories, and even a tragedy in the Elizabethan style, it is the essays that give him an important place in the history of English literature. Even though he has always been recognized as perhaps one of the greatest masters of English essays, there are some readers whose admiration is less than wholehearted. He has faults of style which have been reflected and magnified in his many imitators. If T.S. Eliot was right in saying that Milton was a great poet but a bad influence on other poets, the same might be said of Charles Lamb as an essayist. His worst enemies perhaps have been those critics who have allowed their sympathy for him as a man to influence their judgment of him as a writer. Charles Lamb knew poverty, sorrow, and tragedy, wrote one of them. He faced his lot bravely. He put aside all thought of self and lived for others. It may be true, but it need not affect our opinion of essays. Okay, we talked about Charles Lamb as an innovator of personal essays and his contribution in the field of essay writing in the history of English literature that cannot be denied. He is one of the popular essays to be remembered after Francis Bacon of Renaissance period. Bacon wrote impersonal essays and Lamb wrote personal essays. So within these two different subgenres of essays, we have to remember Charles Lamb as an innovator, as an important and prolific writer of essays in the history of English literature. With these points, I have come to the end of my today's discussion on Charles Lamb and innovation of personal essays. If you have any queries, please put in my comment box. Don't forget to like, comment and share this video and subscribe my channel. Thank you very much.